All right, well, we'll go ahead and get rolling here. So thank you for those that have joined us this evening. So we're gonna be doing a webinar talking about the role of riparian buffers on our landscape. And so we're really grateful that y'all chose to spend an hour and a half with us and talk about this exciting subject. So just a few housekeeping things. This workshop is being, or this webinar is being recorded, which means that it'll be available after the fact. So for folks who weren't able to make it to the live recording, we'll make sure we have that sent out to those that registered for this webinar, and it'll also be linked on our website. So there'll be access to that for moving forward. And then, so just a couple things we ask that you keep yourself muted during the presentation. We will have lots of time at the end for a Q&A. If you have questions that come up during the webinar, feel free to throw those in the chat and we'll make sure that we keep track of them and they get answered at the end. Yeah, and so I think we'll get started here. And I think we want to start by first introducing ourselves. So I'll go ahead and begin. So my name is Kiana Sinner, and I work with the Thurston Conservation District. I work in our education and communication department, where I get to do a lot of activities like this, like webinars, and I work with a lot of folks in our community. And then we also have Joey Burgess on the call. And Joey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Kiana. I'm Joey Burgess, a habitat restoration specialist at the district. I primarily work on riparian projects, kind of like we're going to talk to today, but also branch into other realms of the habitat restoration world, especially with shoreline properties and prairie properties as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Joey. All right. So just so you all know, we are the Thurston Conservation District. Joey and I both work for the Conservation District. So here at Thurston CD, we have been working with local residents since 1948. We actually just celebrated our 75th year as an organization last year. We serve residents in Thurston County who reside upon the indigenous lands of the Nisqually, Chehalis, and Squaxin peoples. We are one of 45 districts out of in one of 3,000 in the United States. And so oftentimes you'll hear conservation districts called soil and water conservation districts. Here in Thurston County, we're just called Thurston Conservation District, but many counties or regions have them here in the United States. And so we have the opportunity to work with folks in our community on to manage natural resources. And so conservation districts were first formed in around the 1930s when around the time of the Dust Bowl as like a place-based response to natural resource concerns. And so ever since then, we've been working with landowners and community members in our local area to provide voluntary, non-regulatory, incentive-based support. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about the kind of support and guidance that we can offer folks in our community as we go through this webinar. So you'll get to hear a little bit more about how our organization functions and the resources that we can offer you. But so we'll start by just talking really briefly about what we're going to cover today. So Joey is going to be giving the majority of the presentation this evening, but we're going to start by talking about what a riparian buffer is. We're going to talk a little bit about the historical management of our river and stream systems. We're going to talk about why riparian buffers are important and how they support a functioning, healthy riparian system. We're also going to, oh, it looks like are people able to see my screen, my share? Yeah, can I get a thumbs up if you can see it? Okay, good. I just got a note from Joey that he might not be able to see it. So Hopefully we'll figure that out in just a second here, but I'll finish this slide and then we'll make sure that that's working. Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. Okay. We're also going to talk about some financial assistance programs that the Thurston Conservation District offers, and talk about maybe if, they could potentially be a fit for you. So there's time for questions to see if they are a good fit, and then learn a bit more about those programs. And then we'll talk about other ways we can also offer support. And so that's sort of the roadmap for this evening. And so I will, I have a poll I wanted to do, first of all, just to learn a little bit about who's here this evening. And so I'm curious what you all are hoping to learn from tonight's webinar. So I'm going to launch this poll, okay, let's see. Okay, so you should see a poll in front of you, and it says, I want to learn, and then there's a few options. So the options are what a riparian buffer is and why they're important, how to create a healthy riparian buffer, what financial assistance programs exist to help plant a riparian buffer on maybe your property, or all of the above. Okay, it looks like we're getting a, the vast majority says all of the above, which is exciting. Okay, well, that's great, because we're going to be talking about all of these things. So I'm glad that that's what's of interest. All right. So now we can get started with the exciting content here. So I'll share the poll really quick so y'all have a second to see it. And then we'll transition over to Joey. And Joey, I want to make sure, can you see the slide now?
I can't see the slides. I'm really sorry about that, but I think I'll be able to just kind of follow along with the presentation on the side of it. So we'll be okay.
All right, great. You just let me know when you're ready for the slide to transition and we'll go from there.
Okay, you can go for it.
Perfect.
Okay, so what is a riparian buffer? The term riparian refers to the transition zone between land and water. Riparian zones are extremely important habitat areas. They provide food, cover, and habitat for wildlife, as well as creating travel corridors for wildlife to travel safely through a landscape. They also act as natural filtration systems for pollution, chemicals, and nutrients that come from fertilizer, pet waste, and other parts of the watershed. Trees and shrubs have real deep roots, so that helps stabilize the ground and results in less erosion, and also helps filter sediment, which is beneficial for water quality as well. These riparian areas hold water and release it slowly for longer stream flow and groundwater discharge. This can also result in less flooding and drought. It kind of holds the water where you want it to be, rather than in an open, developed system. Having a healthy riparian zone can also increase your property value because there is less erosion and thus less property loss over time. And real quick, I have a question, just for your own kind of thoughts. Is what do you think about the picture here? How does this riparian area look? Does it seem like it could be improved in any way? Does it look like it's providing any of the services I just listed, like food, habitat, or cover for wildlife? Is it filtering pollution, chemicals, and nutrients? Do you see trees with deep roots that might reduce erosion? Okay, we can go to the next slide. And how does this photo look compared to the previous one? One of the main goals of riparian buffer restoration is to create complexity in the system. So as you can see here, there's a lot of woody debris with fallen trees, many different types of plants and trees, also many different sized plants and trees. as well as even different sized rocks and cobble. These are all habitat features that benefit species when there's a lot of different options, and the complexity is really a key indicator of the health of the system. One aspect of complexity that's not really showing up in this picture is um, the creek or river meandering and splitting into different side channels, forming different habitats, different degrees of depth. So there's pools or shallow areas for salmon to lay eggs. A high degree of complexity creates ideal habitat for aquatic species that need these features for cover, shade, and reduced temperatures, as well as inputs of nutrients from plant material falling into the water. Okay, we can go to the next one. So historically, and really not even very far back in history, the belief was that a healthy river system is a singular, straight channel with very little complexity and total control. It was even thought that wood in the water was problematic and that it was a barrier or an obstacle and it looked messy. And so the common approach was to remove the wood from rivers and creek systems. If you can just imagine what the fish and birds, amphibians, mammals were all thinking as these critical habitat features are just being systematically removed from their environment, is not an ideal situation for aquatic life. But the good news is this belief has shifted, and restoration practitioners are creating complexity across the landscape in our river systems, in many different ways. And one of the ways is building riparian buffers. So we can go to the next one, Kian. As mentioned before, complexity is crucial for adequate habitat. This includes having a complex canopy with different species to provide different nutrients to the system, as well as different sizes and heights in the canopy to supply habitat to a diverse mix of species. And as these trees and shrubs along the river mature and die, they fall into the river and provide valuable nutrients. But they also change the hydrology of the river by posing obstacles to the flow, which often creates side channels. As you can sort of see in that photo, there's salmon using a newly formed habitat feature from all the large wood being placed. So often aquatic creatures will use these side channels as habitat. And so large plant debris like huge branches or even tree trunks in the water actually change how the water flows and creates a more dynamic system than just that straight line channel that they thought was healthy before. And as the flows become more complex with added wood, side channels, pools, long rocky stretches called riffles that salmon use for spawning, these all start to emerge and create more complexity, which spawns into more complexity and even more healthy habitat. The photo on the right shows a piece of engineered habitat. The logs are placed strategically to create side channels and pools and even to change the flow to allow the river to connect to its floodplain, which further cascades into creating more complex habitat on land in the form of wetlands and seasonally inundated areas. So yeah, a lot of our creeks and rivers around here have been sort of channelized and incised, which means they form a very deep um, kind of like valley or channel that in high flow times, like during a storm or during the winter, the river actually never breaches that bank, and that isn't very natural for a system. And breaking those walls and kind of reconnecting that floodplain to the river or stream is actually kind of the goal in what we're trying to do. And a lot of our wetlands and seasonally inundated areas depend on this floodplain connection. And so that's another benefit to enhancing these buffers. You can go to the next one. And along the same lines as providing habitat, and a critical part of habitat itself is the feature of providing shade, especially as we're seeing hotter and drier summers, and we expect this trend to continue as climate change pressures increase. It's critical for these systems to have adequate shade for keeping temperatures as low as possible and creating cover from direct sun for aquatic creatures. The next one. Another key feature of riparian buffers is that they act as natural filtration systems for pollution, chemicals, and nutrients from things like fertilizer and pet waste before they reach our streams and rivers. For crop systems that need a lot of pesticides or fertilizers, like the blueberries in the picture on the left, managing nutrient runoff and inputs into our river system is critical to protect water quality. Planting a buffer like this one on the right that's just getting started provides natural filtration from farming activities, as well as filtration of other pollutants in the watershed that come from a variety of sources. Okay, next one. Deep tree and shrub roots also help stabilize the ground and result in less erosion and helping filter sediment, which is beneficial for water quality as well. These areas hold water and release it slowly for longer stream flow and groundwater discharge, which ends up resulting in less flooding and helps with drought mitigation as well. Okay, next. And so for all of our buffer plantings, we rely on planting native species. This is for a number of reasons, including that they provide food and habitat for our local pollinators and critters. For example, pollinators like butterflies and honeybees rely on native plants for food and the shelter they need to survive. Birds and deer also rely on the plants for food and shelter. Native plants also promote a healthy ecosystem because they provide biodiversity and more complexity, which again means with a wider variety of different plants, we get a much healthier and vibrant local ecosystem that includes a diverse network. Non-native species do not provide the same habitat benefit for the local ecosystem. In the summer, native plants are able to survive without an excess of watering, fertilizer, or pesticides, while non-native plants tend to rely on higher inputs of water, fertilizers, and pesticides to survive. Lastly, one of the coolest parts of native plants are they're so beautiful. You can see in this photo this beautiful salmonberry in bloom. And as we go through this presentation, I'm sure you're going to see more. As we mentioned earlier, our role as a district in the community is to assist community members in managing natural resources on private properties. When we work with individuals who are interested in stewarding their landscape, we suggest native plants that will grow well in an area and offer advice on how to successfully install native plants. Okay, next. At Thurston Conservation District, it's our job to link landowners to programs that allow them to accomplish their land management goals while restoring habitat. There are a number of tools in our toolbox, and two exciting programs that get riparian buffers installed that I'm going to talk about today are the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, or CREP for short, and the Tiered Incentive Program, or TIP. In both programs, an area around a water body is temporarily taken out of production, meaning it cannot be used for crops or pasture while the buffer is getting established. And that's not talking about the whole property or anything, it's just where the actual acreage of the buffer itself. Livestock access and any other development are also paused in the buffer area while it's under contract. Both of these programs offer incentives to participate, and participants can join for either 10 or 15-year contracts. And both of those have annual rental payments for every year involved in the contract. And there are a few differences in the program, in the programs, which I will get into now. Okay, so next slide. The first is the CREP program. Many of the participants in the CREP program are farmers, and so every bit of acreage on their property can be crucial to their livelihoods. And so this is the coolest part of the CREP program, is that participants get paid an annual rental fee that is calculated based on the acreage taken out of production. So buffers get built, salmon habitat gets enhanced, and landowners get paid. Everybody wins. The CREP program is great for agricultural producers with livestock because the program pays for livestock crossings to get across water bodies. They also can get livestock watering facilities built because often landowners with livestock and a river or a stream have water rights, and they use that water to water their animals. But it's obviously not in the interest of the habitat to let livestock have access to the stream or river, especially while we're trying to get plants established in there. And so the program actually will build systems to bring the water to the animals, which is a great feature because these technologies can be pretty expensive for a farmer. The last thing that it offers too is fencing to keep livestock out of the buffer area. And also, that's another key benefit because fencing can be quite expensive as well. And it's a pretty great advantage to be able to have that built into the project. And so the CREP program is a federal program. It's run by the Farm Service Agency and partnered with the Washington State Conservation Commission, as well as the Natural Resource Conservation Service. We all partnered together to make the program happen. The district and the Natural Resource Conservation Service are kind of the technical side that builds the conservation plan for the projects and make sure that the habitat is adequate for a project. And under the CREP program, buffers can be up to 180 feet at the maximum. And so all of the acreage contained within 180 feet on either side of a water body can be enrolled. The goal of the program is to enhance salmon habitat. And so all the rivers and streams that are eligible for the program are salmon running rivers and streams, or they're a tributary to a salmon running river or stream. That is a key piece for the CREP program, is it needs to have documented salmon presence. Thurston Conservation District supports participants of the CREP program by developing conservation plans, which is essentially the project management piece of the project with ecological parameters attached. District staff walks participants through the entire enrollment process, including the contracting, being the main liaison between the other agencies. We also coordinate maintenance work for the buffer projects for 5 years until the planting is complete, which consists of controlling invasive species and potentially replanting in unsuccessful areas. And so that's a really great part of the program too, is that for 5 years you have kind of like a specialist to assess the project twice a year and to recommend maintenance work, which usually comes in the form of mowing around all the plantings and making sure the competition is down so we can have the most survival possible with our plantings. Okay, so that was probably a lot about the CREP program. Now we're going to shift gears to the tiered incentive program. So the tiered incentive program is like CREP in the respect that landowners are compensated for acreage enrolled in the program. That's the incentive part. But the main difference there between the TIP program and the CREP program is that the TIP program actually incentivizes the largest buffer possible. And so you can go much further than 180 feet as a buffer size, and a landowner can be paid the additional extra as well. So the larger buffer you do, the larger incentive payment you get. It's also a bit different in terms of the flexibility, where the CREP program has a very set map of what streams and rivers are eligible. The TIP program doesn't really have those parameters. It's more just incentivizing buffers to be built. And so you don't necessarily have to have a salmon running stream to be eligible for the program. Another slight difference is that there are other practices than the riparian buffer that can be planted. If you are in a drier environment that is not naturally dominated by trees, there is a separate practice to plant shrubs and appropriate species that match that landscape. Also, for the TIP program, seasonal streams and artificial conveyances like agricultural ditches can be eligible if they're connected to a perennial stream. And also, a landowner does not need to be an agricultural producer to be part of the program either. Okay, now we can move on to eligibility. You go to the next slide. Okay, so for eligibility, landowners whose properties contain or are adjacent to an eligible water body, which are rivers and streams and their tributaries with documented salmon presence for the CREP program, or just anyone that has a water body that is willing to put a buffer on it is eligible. Landowners who own or operate cropland, pasture land, or land with marginal pasture, environmentally sensitive lands, and land that is contributing to water quality issues can all enroll. One piece that's interesting there is it makes it sound like you need to be an agricultural producer, but if you focus on the one piece that says marginal pasture, that is a designation where landowners with big fields that might have used to be in agricultural production but are no longer being harvested for hay or grazed can still be eligible under that designation. And that's very common in Thurston County. Okay, we can go to the next one. And so you don't need a program necessarily to plant your own riparian buffer. It does help because of all the financial assistance and the technical assistance, but there are ways to enhance your riparian area on your own as well. And Thirsty Conservation District can help you plant your own buffer without enrolling in a program in a few different ways. Those are mainly assisting with creating planting plans. So we can work with you to talk to you about your goals, what native plants you like to see on your landscape, what species you're trying to support. And we can take a visit to your place and design a plan tailored exactly to what you want. And that also will include a schedule of planting as well. So you can kind of take it on a multi-year approach and do it bit by bit if you just kind of follow the plan that we create for you. The other way that's real helpful is we can assist with sourcing native plants. Um, we have relationships with a lot of the native plant producers and know when they are available and can steward you through that process for sure. Our native plant sales are a great place for sourcing plant material easily and in bulk amounts. There's tons of resources and to learn about, and also the event is just super fun in general. We also have a fall sale that focuses on seeds and bulbs, and you can find all that info on our website and in our monthly newsletter. Okay, I can hand it back to Kiana.
All right, thank you so much, Joey. That was an awesome presentation. So I just wanted to, before we open it up for questions, I want to run through a few resources that we have that y'all are welcome to use to learn more. So we often do little webinars or workshops just like this one. And so we have those recorded from the last several years. And I just pointed out a couple here that might be of interest to folks who were able to join this webinar. And so we have one that's all about agroforestry. We have one that's about hedgerows. And then one that we've entitled Backyard Stewardship, which goes into a lot of the things that Jolie talked about and some of the benefits of enhancing the space that you're stewarding, the landscape you're stewarding. And so these are 3 great webinars. We've got, I don't know, probably 30 on our website. And so I'll post a link to those in a moment. I also wanted to share that we have lots of hands-on learning opportunities. So we have volunteer opportunities. We do hands-on workshops. And we have a monthly newsletter where we have all of the events, so webinars like this and workshops that we do that are listed in there. And so I'll post a link to that in a moment to sign up for that if you'd like. We also post it on our website and our social media, so you can stay up to date with all the happenings at the Conservation District. We also have these really helpful stream-side technical assistance memos is what we call them. And I have gone ahead and put them into a Google Drive folder, and I'm going to share the link to that as well in a moment. And so there are lots of really great handouts in there that talk about the types of plants that you might plant along your stream side, how to prepare an area before you plant, how to maintain a planting after you plant, how to work with contractors if you're doing a larger scale project. There's one that talks all about flooding and erosion, which are a lot of the issues that we hear from property owners are some of the driving factors for why they come talk to us. And so we've got some information in there. Like Joey mentioned, we have a native plant sale. We actually have 2. We have one that happens in the spring and one happens in the fall. So the fall native plant sale is a seed and bulb sale, and that pre-orders for that open in August. And then our spring sale is all bare roots, so shrubs and trees and herbaceous ground cover, and pre-orders for that open October 1st. And also, like Joey mentioned, we offer one-on-one technical assistance and support. And so if that's something you're interested in, we recommend reaching out to either Joey or I, and we can get a little bit more information from you, hear a bit about your goals for your property and sort of maybe your concerns, and talk about how we can, potentially come out to your property and do a site visit and offer some guidance or support. And like Joey mentioned too, all the work that we do is on a voluntary basis. So we work with folks who want to work with us, and we're also a non-regulatory agency. And so we aren't ever reporting anything or sharing any information about landowners. And then the last thing I wanted to share was something, a resource that Joey has that he has found really useful when talking with community members about riparian buffers and doing projects like that. And that's this really great toolkit that the Utah State University has put together. And it's all about low-tech, process-based and low-tech restoration practices. And so I've also put that in the Google Drive, and I'll also share a link to that in the chat in a second so you can explore that a little bit more if you're interested. But oftentimes, folks that we work with just find having a conversation with one of our staff members as a really useful tool as well. Okay, so here I've listed Joey and my contact information, so you're welcome to give either of us an email. And Joey, do you mind putting your contact information in the chat? And then we are opening it up for questions. We really want this to be an opportunity to for folks to share what's on their mind and get any burning questions you might have answered. And so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody who's on this evening about any questions you may have. And while you're thinking about those, I'm going to get the links that I want to post in the chat. And it's all right if we don't have questions too, or maybe you want some time to think about them and you'd rather email them or give us a call. That's also an option. Yeah. If there aren't any questions, then we might be able to get out of here a little bit early and you can get back to your evenings. I'll do one last call for questions. But Joey, I want to thank Joey for your really great presentation and sharing some great information about programs. And again, folks are welcome to connect with Joey or I, and we can share a little bit more in depth about those programs that we talked about pretty briefly tonight, and talk about how they could potentially be a good fit for you or not. Yeah, so feel free to reach out to us, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kiana. I appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoy your evening, and we'll hopefully see you soon.